like to wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. God bless you.
Bless you. Thank you.
As a gift to you for 2015, would like to give you a taste for our upcoming project.
Est-ce que ça va ce soir? Et nous sommes là. On est ensemble. Ah oui, nous allons louer le Seigneur ensemble ce soir. Que tout le monde acclame le nom de Jésus. Parce qu'il est glorieux, il est puissant. Mais c'est comment? Ah! Jésus le roi des rois. Oh. Jésus le roi des rois. Oh. Jésus est mon sauveur. Jésus est mon sauveur. Moi je vais le suivre sur le chemin de la croix.
for God, so we can rule from Cape to Cairo. You must free my people's hands, so we can rule our purpose land. I wanna know who owns the land. Who wanna know who owns the land? Okay, now listen carefully. Chinese are ruling the Chinese land. Japan is ruled by Japanese. England is governed by Englishmen. America is governed by Americans.
Ambassador Tibor Nagy, whom we're going to turn the floor over to. Mr. Ambassador, welcome.
Thank you very, very much, Excellency. And I have to congratulate you because in my long career, this is the first Cameroon-related event which is starting early, not even on time. Given so many events I attended there, but thank you very much. My introductory remarks are not going to be long because this is not like a sermon at church. This is meant to be an exchange with the participants, not a lecture. So when I came back,
it's okay.
There's somebody in the background.
Yes, I'm trying to.
No, I've already muted the person.
Okay. When I came back to the government, U.S. government, as Assistant Secretary of State, obviously I found a number of very hot button issues on my desk, since the Assistant Secretary is responsible for 48 countries. One of those, which had recently erupted, was the case in Cameroon and the increasing brutality that the government was illustrating towards the southern Cameroons, the Anglophone areas. As a matter of fact, my first week on the job, I had a telephone call with my counterpart in Paris, who was going off on vacation, as all of the French do in August. And I told him, I said, we just had a very brief phone call, and I said, you know, the one thing I really want to talk to you about when you get back is the problem in Cameroon. And he said, okay. Unfortunately, from that time until the time I left as Assistant Secretary, that was one of about 3 issues on which I was not able to make any headway at all, because despite our best efforts, we just could not get, especially our French colleagues, interested in joining with us, because we felt that one of the instruments we should immediately create would be an international contact group of key interlocutors who could involve themselves. Another huge disappointment for me was the African Union, because the person serving the African Union at the time in charge of their conflict office was somebody I had worked with very closely. So, you know, we knew each other very well. But even with the African Union, I just could not get any real interest or willingness to be very active. And, you know, we all know the reason why. The African Union heads of state tend to look after each other. They're not going to intervene, especially when you have a head of state who's been serving for, what is it now, almost 40 years, which is about 30 years too long, but there was just no avenue there. So here we are. The situation keeps getting worse and worse and worse. The Cameroonian government shows no interest, no real interest in resolving the situation and solving it in a way that it could still be solved. At the beginning, I felt that the majority of Southern Cameroonians were still in favor of a honest federation, but as time went on, my perception, and I have not seen any polling. I know Cardinal Toomey did some polling, but I felt like as the time goes on, more and more of the people on the ground are preferring independence. Now, I have to say, from my own point of view, and I say this over and over again, I personally have no preference for the solution. You know, I know that there are members of the community who absolutely want independence. There are other members who want a federation, other members who want a confederation. I have no preference as far as any solutions go. What I care about is ending the suffering of the people on the ground, coming up with some kind of a solution where the Southern Cameroonians have the same equality, the same rights and privileges, the same respect, the same dignity as other Cameroonians. So that, you know, that is my point of view on that. I also believe, although I have not spoken to President Biya since I visited there several years ago, but I also believe that he's not going to take any action beyond what's happening right now. I know that he has advisors who are telling him that he should engage in the peace process, but he has other advisors which are telling him that no, we need to increase the military effort and just crush the secession. Another point that I have made over and over again is that it's going to be the Cameroonian community that's going to have to come up with the solution. That this is not an issue that the international community is going to solve for you. I know that's disappointing, and I know so many members of the community have the list of grievances, including the historical grievances going back to 1961 and various historical and academic points of view. And I tell people that we need to deal with reality, the way the world works, not the way we want the world to work. So those people who, you know, issue paper after paper that, you know, the international community needs to get active, the international community needs to solve this, I tell you that is not going to be done. So it's going to be up to the Cameroonian community to be the key for any solution. I want to mention one other thing about the Swiss process. I have said before that I don't have much faith in that process. I also know that the people involved in that on the Swiss side are very well intentioned. They have goodwill. They have put a lot of energy into it, but right now it's not going anywhere. Unfortunately, the Cameroonian government can point to the Swiss process and say that if the opposition gets its act together, that we will engage with them in serious negotiations. I believe that at a minimum, the opposition needs to at least participate, even if we do not believe that that's going to lead anywhere, just to make the Cameroonian government step up or shut up. Because as long as the opposition does not participate in the process, the Cameroonian government has what we call in the United States a fig leaf of legitimacy to say that they are ready to engage, but it's the other side that is not. So if the Swiss organize a conference, then I believe that it's incumbent on the community to respond positively and at least participate, instead of one group saying, oh, I'm not going to go if that other group goes, or at the last minute finding some excuse not to participate. But as I said, honest to goodness, I'm not at all optimistic that that will lead anywhere, because as I said before, I don't believe the Cameroon government is acting in good faith. Now, talking about solutions, what I have said and what I continue to believe is that the solution with the community lies in a couple of broad topics. Number one is unity. I know that there are various interim governments. There are various other groups. Some favor federation, constitutional reform, constitutionalist, confederation, independence, etc., etc. So I know that there cannot be 100% unity in approach, but I do believe that there could be 100% unity in the desired outcome for the benefit of the people on the ground. And if I was in the Cameroonian community, I would focus on finding those areas where there is agreement and focus on those and leave the modalities to later in the process. Because if you want to start getting a solution, then it's absolutely essential to act from a point of view of unity. So those people who do not want to see a solution cannot use your disunity to their advantage. So number one for me is unity. Number two is resources. I myself am a member of a diaspora, the Hungarian American diaspora, and I have seen how other diasporas can take their issues forward within the United States political system. And what it comes down to is resources. That members of the community have to be generous with their wallets and with their time and with their energy and with their dedication. Resources does not mean issuing 10-page manifestos or writing on Twitter or sending emails back and forth. Resources means actually financially supporting your outreach effort and your education effort. And that's the next category, is outreach and education. For many of you, the issue of Southern Cameroons is your priority number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in life. And that's how it should be. But for America at large, the issue of the Cameroons does not even come up on the radar screen. You know, not only is it not a front burner issue, it is not a back burner issue. And quite frankly, I wonder if the pot is even on the stove. So it is your responsibility to make sure that those who are in political positions of power, whether it's in the executive branch or whether it's in the legislative branch or whether it's in your state governments, that they become aware of your issue. And that falls to you. I have seen other diasporas do this very, very well, including the Ethiopians, the Tigrayans, the Somalilanders, and various others. So that is very much in your court, because again, no one is going to do that for you. Along with outreach and education, then there has to be a call to action. If you educate members of Congress and members of the administration in the Department of State, in the National Security Council, in the White House, what do you want them to do? You know, that's the first question. When I worked for Secretary of State Pompeo, and he would have a meeting or he would have a telephone call with an African head of state or high-ranking official, he would say, Tibor, what do you want out of this meeting? What is the U.S. interest in this meeting? If you get a meeting with a member of Congress and you talk to them for 15 minutes about the historical wrongs that were done to Anglophone Cameroon, that's not going to end up getting any action. When you engage with members of Congress, you engage with the NSC, you have to have an objective. What is the objective? What do you want them to do? Is it a resolution? Is it a law? You know, what is it? And again, that has to come from your unity, because I'll tell you one thing: if the staff of the House Foreign Affairs Committee or the Senate Foreign Relations Committee receives delegation after delegation from Southern Cameroon, and everyone comes in with a different story, then all they're going to do is throw their hands up and maybe issue some statements condemning the human rights violations, but it's not going to lead to anything. And in 10 years' time, you'll be having this kind of a meeting with somebody else and discussing the same issues. So it has to be careful strategy, careful tactics, very thorough outreach, and very targeted outreach, but it has to be an extremely professionally done public diplomacy campaign with American politicians, and preferably, if you have similar organizations in the United Kingdom, there as well, in Canada certainly, in Germany certainly, in Brussels with the European Union, and yes, with the French, because like it or not, whether you like the French or not, they have considerable influence in Cameroon. And I think it is quite clear that the French right now are not happy with what's going on in Cameroon. So it is up to you to engage with them and educate them as well, because you have to talk to everybody who has any kind of pressure that can be applied in this situation. If you have people in Beijing, talk to the Chinese as well, because as we all know, the Chinese count for a lot in Africa these days. They very well might count for more than just about anybody else. So that's one thing, because your goal is to absolutely have some kind of an outcome through allies that will move the process forward and end the suffering and the human rights abuses and end up with a kind of Southern Cameroon political system that the majority of the population wants. That's where you will have to get into the difficulties of independence, federation, confederation, whatever. But it's at that point where either the majority of the population will have their say, or the group that is the most action-oriented, will achieve their objectives. Again, I absolutely do not have any say in that, because that say comes from the Cameroonians, not from outsiders. But I would encourage those of you, who have a sense and interest in history, to see how the American Revolution played out, because in many respects there are very close parallels. When the American Revolution started, the great majority of the colonists wanted to maintain their ties with England. But when England made mistake after mistake after mistake, the minority view in the revolution, which wanted independence, eventually prevailed. And that was the fault of England, not anything that happened on the American side. So again, I would urge you to look at other historical models. So with that, I've gone on I wanted to do 15 minutes. I've gone over a little bit longer, but I will stop, and I would be delighted to engage in discussions. And I will tell you, anybody who comes up and starts talking about the historical grievances, I don't think that that's going to, make any difference whatsoever. Because as I've told you, it's not going to be the historical grievances that are going to carry your arguments. The strongest point you have in your favor are the horrible things that the Cameroonian government is doing to the people of Southern Cameroon. And that is what the world will carry about. That must stop. Not to replay what happened in 1961 and how that happened. Because I'll be honest with you, again, dealing with today's world, the people in policy positions just don't care about that. So with that, I will stop and then turn it over to you guys.
Much, Mr. Ambassador. That is quite a lot of information for us to take in, and I'm really hoping we were taking copious notes. I know I was. So, and we have some questions. Please direct all your questions to the Secretariat, and I'll read them out. We have several that have come in. This one is from Dr. Kilo. The Russia military agreement with Cameroon, what does that say to Southern Cameroonians? And let me go through 3 or 4 together, then you can discuss them together.
Can I interject something here? It's a lot easier for me to take them one at a time.
Okay,
and
that's
you get
fine.
Questions, what you could do is, if some of the questions are similar, you can paraphrase so that you put them together. But that's a lot easier, because you know what? I'm 74 years old, so by the time you get to question number 3, I've forgotten question number 1.
Okay, certainly.
So let's talk. Yeah, the Russian agreement. It is what they have done basically is they have extended an agreement that they had in 2015. So it's not that much of a new thing, but what really got me was, again, the horrible judgment that the Cameroon government has in their timing, because they decided to publicize this exactly when the whole world, well, most of the world, was condemning, or at least staying neutral in the case of Russia's aggression in Ukraine. So this basically is kind of a big, now I hate to use, I'm not going to use an obscenity, but basically it's a poke in the eye of the United States. It's a poke in the eye of the Western Alliance. It's a poke in the eye of the European Union. And it's basically thumbing their nose. So again, whoever advised President Biya to agree to this was doing a disservice to Cameroon, because it was a really stupid move.
Okay. Something that seems to be quite prominent these days, and although rumors obviously keep appearing to be premature about the imminent demise of the president, of President Biya, which leads to several doomsday scenarios. In your expert opinion, I think you've seen several of these play out in the African continent. What doomsday scenario do you see playing out for Cameroon in general and Southern Cameroonians specifically in their interest in this matter? I mean, we are all mortal. The eventual, whenever that happens, demise of the president.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. When I was deputy ambassador in Yaoundé, 1987 to 1990, 1990 to 1993, there were rumors that President Biya was dying of prostate cancer. Now it's 30 years later, and of course, given his age, of course, there are rumors like that. But I also understand that close members of his family have lived to be over 100. So I don't think that that's the kind of thing someone will, should be banking on, focusing on. Although I'm sure that, people are thinking about whatever will be the post-Biya government. But we also know that since there is no clearly designated number 2, there obviously will be a very intense battle for supremacy. And we know that his advisors, like I said before, his advisors obviously disagree very strongly on what policy to follow vis-a-vis the Southern Cameroons. And so, everybody will be curious to see, who steps in. But, if from your point of view, I would think about that, but I would not base my strategic thinking on a post-Biya government, because no one knows, number one, when it will happen, and no one knows what form that will take. I think one thing you can say is it could be the same, it could be a lot worse, or it could be a lot better. So 360 degrees, right?
Herman.
Yes, thank you. My internet froze for a second there. So, Mr. Edmond and moderator, in case I freeze again, you can take over. Okay. We have several countries that have kind of gone through similar paths, some in terms of colonial history, some in terms of seeking independence. So we can think about South Sudan, Somaliland, the Gambia, Zanzibar, together with Tanzania, Eritrea. when we look, and that is just within the African continent, and we can think about the Aceh region in Indonesia and several. Some have failed, most have failed really. When we think about the independence movements and its histories, what one or two critical pieces of advice can you give Southern Cameroonians to say, given the history of independence movements, what can we do to separate ourselves from the pack, at least those seeking independence, such that this is a more successful, and let me switch from the word independence, please, and a liberation struggle, because we don't also want to be a South Sudan-like situation where you gain independence, but you end up in a conflict situation. We want a freedom situation where the people are actually liberated. So what one or two critical things can we do at this junction of the struggle to ensure liberation of Southern Cameroonians, eventual timely liberation of Southern Cameroonians?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because you said the same thing that I was thinking, was that how many of those struggles ended up in successful states? And one of the key factors in liberation struggles is the truth that very rarely do good military leaders make good civilian leaders post-independence. You can look around the continent and count on just a couple of fingers where that was the case. The United States was extremely fortunate in having had George Washington, who was not only a brilliant military commander, but then he became an even better statesman. But along with that, he had the inner calling to say that I will only do this for 8 years and then I will step aside, even though the entire country wanted him to stay. So that takes an extremely rare individual. You mentioned South Sudan, which is one of the biggest disasters. And one of the reasons I believe that it went in the wrong direction is because John Garang, who was a George Washington type of figure, unfortunately died before South Sudan, could take off. And then you look at the cases you mentioned, Eritrea, the same thing. You have a brilliant military commander who has been a horrible president because of his megalomania and unwillingness to step out of power. So in such cases, it is worthwhile having good military people, but for them to understand that they are good military people and not necessarily post-independence leaders. And it's good to have civilian post-independent leaders who can work together with the military leaders. Otherwise, as I said in one of my congressional testimonies, because at that time I was very pessimistic about everything, I said, the world does not need a new, rump country that becomes a basket case of misgovernment, of where the human rights violations would be even worse than they are now. So that has to be very carefully considered by the community, but most importantly by the community on the ground, because the members, again, being a member of the Hungarian diaspora, we could sit in the United States and discuss these issues while going to Walmart, whereas the people on the ground did not have that kind of a luxury. They're the ones who are really impacted by these decisions. And then you always have, in a post-independence scenario, where the diaspora wants to come in and exercise a certain amount of power, and the people on the ground say, go away, where were you when we were doing the difficult things? It's not for you to tell us how to run our country. So it's very important to have close coordination and cooperation throughout the whole process, if that is the direction that the people of Southern Cameroons want to go in.
Herman.
Okay, I have a question
on the secretariat, in the secretariat chat, which really probably very important for His Excellency to pick up, right? The question about the interim government, can the idea of an interim government for Southern Cameroons and the diaspora scare foreign governments from supporting the course? I guess we question comes from Thomas Funger, signed up on his name. And then the second one, I know you said you were 74, but I see a 30-something-year-old man, not a 74-year-old person that is talking to us. But I should just mention this particular one because you already mentioned it, which is the concept from lawyer Mbese, I guess, Barrister Mbese. The Swiss-led initiative is certainly not perfect, but for now, is the only opening available. Will it not be necessary for all Amazonians to to engage and then improve on it? The rest is a comment. So just wanted to make sure that those questions are read from the chat room.
Yeah, I'll go again on the Swiss thing. I know some of the people involved there, and they have the absolute best intentions. They have put a lot of their own resources on the line. Unfortunately, the Swiss, we see the example of the Red Cross, phenomenal organization, but they have the goodwill, but they don't have any, political power or pressure that they can apply. For that, they would depend on other members of the international community, but it would make their case a lot easier if the entire opposition community and the Southern Cameroonian people on the ground involve themselves, at least willingness to participate together, even if they disagree among each other, even very dramatically as to how they want, how they want this to play out. Because by not participating, I truly believe in this from my experience that 80% of life is showing up. If you don't show up, then you leave a vacuum. So even if you are not optimistic about the process, and I am not optimistic about the process, but I think it's absolutely essential to show up and to not use the excuse of, oh, well, another group is participating and I don't like them because they're thinking differently. That's a terrible attitude to take, so that's one. On the interim government, here's the problem. If there is one interim government that the great majority of the community recognizes, that is a point of strength. If there are several interim governments and they all present themselves as an interim government, then that is a huge point of weakness and confusion. And the international interlocutors will look at that as just waste of time, number one, and a reason not to get involved. So that's why my first point in talking to this group was the importance of unity. If not unity of process, then unity of outcome. Because every single group in the diaspora and on the ground should be willing to walk into a foreign minister's office together and say, we all want the human rights violations to end. We want rights. We want them to have their linguistic dignity. We want them to have exactly the same access to justice, government services, education, school, hospitals that other Cameroonians have. They are not getting that now, so we need your help for us to achieve that.
If I could
yes,
ask,
go ahead.
I just had a follow-up question because Your Excellency, because when the Swiss process was going on, there was the talk of it hampers other genuine international players to come in because they would say the Swiss process is in place. Now, if we are feeding a process which you say won't go anywhere, wouldn't that hamper other genuine players who can actually do something from coming onto the scene?
Not necessarily, because my thinking is that if the Swiss process is going to be shown to be a failure, then the faster that's done, the better. Otherwise, if it just keeps dragging out, and the Swiss try organizing one conference after another conference, and some people show up and other people don't show up, and some people show up to the next conference, then the Cameroonian government can keep saying, oh, you know, we're ready to engage, but the opposition is not. If very quickly, you know, everybody gets together with the Swiss, and then the Cameroon government is shown to be absolutely not acting in good faith, then you have a much stronger argument to take to the other members of the international community, the ones who really matter. The United States, the French, the Canadians, the British, the Germans, the European Union. And I keep saying that, you know, don't ignore the Chinese, and say, we acted in good faith. We came, we participated, we were ready, but the Cameroonian government did not. So let's put this aside. It's an absolute charade. It needs to come to a stop, and let's get serious.
In other words, unite if it only to kill it.
Yeah. if it's to be killed, because, you know, suppose you guys all show up and the government actually, you know, it shows up and says that the people on the other side who actually are counseling for serious negotiations, and they show up and say, okay, you know, let's talk about this deal. So again, 80% of life is showing up, and so far, you know, people haven't shown up.
No, I think we could just take one or two. I know we said we were going through the secretariat, but I still see maybe some people.
There is still another question that has come in. There are three hands up, Arthur, but there is a big question.
Can I, sorry, let me just chime in a second. Before we go to the hands, I know Jojo Ambazor sent a question that I still was trying to put together and with Yas. It goes back to mutual trust, both in terms of, and his question preface was your earlier comments about federation, which I think you've clarified that you are agnostic as to which path we take. And his question had to do with how can we engage in any form of relationship with Cameroon where there is zero trust. But it also ties to Dr. Kilo's question regarding France, is that France has essentially made no statement or in any way acknowledge even the existence of this conflict. How do we get to even talking to them? Those two questions kind of relate on dealing with those two parties.
Yeah, well, you know, it's very important that no matter who you talk to, you study what are their interests. You can't just assume that everybody's interest is to resolve the humanitarian issue. That is an interest, but what are their real national interests? And I can tell you from my personal experience that I know that France was tremendously frustrated with the Cameroonian government. I mean, I know that. I'm not going to go into diplomatic details, but I know that. Also, President Macron has just been reelected. So he has, point number three, the French have been having a really bad record in Africa, especially vis-a-vis the Russians. They're on the back foot in the Central African Republic. They have been literally pitched out of Mali. So their goals in the Sahel are not going forward. You know, all over the continent, they're not having the best of times right now. So if I was going to make a pitch to the French, I would, make it on the basis of, number one, if Southern Cameroon does get its independence, if that's the direction it goes into, it is prepared to be absolutely a friend to France. It will absolutely respect all commercial agreements. We will be open to French business. We will maintain a two-language policy, and we will continue to teach French in school, and those kind of things. So it's critically important when the community sits down with the French, when it sits down with the English, when it sits down with the Canadians, you know, to do it from their interests, not thinking, again, I've seen this too many times, and I just shake my head when someone comes in my office and talks about justice and equality and it's the international community's responsibility, blah, 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 blah. You know, I just inside, I just say to myself, oh, you know, what a foolish thing to do. If you want a master lesson in how to do this, watch how President Zelensky interacts with various international leaders. When he talks to the Israelis, he talks to them from the point of view of what's important to Israel. When he talks to the Americans, he talks about our great democratic system and how we support liberty around the world. You know, he does this so that he establishes an immediate connection with the audience. The worst thing you can do is when you talk to somebody, you start out by wagging your finger and tell them what a terrible person they are for not, you know, standing up for justice and for helping you solve your problem. At that point, they tune you out, and all they can think about is, when is this person going to leave my office so I can get on to the next one? Okay? You know, that's why I said, in your struggle, public diplomacy, education, and outreach are the most important components.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I think I'll turn it to my colleague in the Secretariat, Dr. Fontaine.
Is he there? Okay, while we're waiting for Dr. Fontaine, let's hear what, just straight to the questions, please. We don't want any preambles. Comrade Charles Agbo, just your question, please. You're muted. Unmute yourself.
You have to unmute. I'm going to give you permission to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for your explanation. Now, you said that our issue is not currently in the radar, the political radar in the US. But the Senate resolution, that is 684, was passed. How can we make this work? And how do we know if it has worked? I'll leave that for now. Thank you.
Yeah. You know, you can get resolutions, but is your goal a resolution, or is your goal the welfare of the people of Southern Cameroon? In other words, you know, resolution can be a step in the right direction, but what do you really, really want the United States government to do? And how do you want that achieved? As I said, the Ethiopians, obviously everyone knows of the horrible conflict going on in northern Ethiopia, and there's two very, different points of view. And the communities have been extremely well organized, interacting with Congress, getting actually both legislation passed, both on the House side and the Senate side, that applies sanctions to different people. I think you saw that Congress actually, or the US government through pressure from Congress, removed Ethiopia or suspended Ethiopia's AGOA, African Growth and Opportunity Act steps. So the community has been extremely efficient in applying US government's pressure and in steering US government policy. And as I told you before, and I think this is extremely important for you guys to remember, especially with the United States, not necessarily with other countries, that the Bureau of African Affairs, as I said, covers 48 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. And you think of those 48 countries, at any one moment, there's at least 4 or 5 major crises going on. So, you think of, the Ethiopian, the war, Somalia, the new insurrection, the terrorism in Mozambique, the ongoing conflict in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, terrorism in the Sahel. So there are these issues that literally take up all of the time. So to get your concerns front and center just takes a tremendous amount of work. But I can tell you, if you get Senator Risch or Senator Menendez interested, and they start calling the State Department, and they call the Secretary of State, and they call the White House, then the White House gets interested. It's a matter of knowing how to apply political pressure in the United States, because I'm assuming most of you are also U.S. citizens now. And, you know, being U.S. citizens, you have, I'm naturalized myself. I was not born here, but as U.S. citizens, once we become U.S. citizens, a naturalized U.S. citizen is just as good as a U.S. born U.S. citizen. So we have political rights, and when you organize people as to how they're going to vote, they pay attention. For example, the Ethiopian community is taking credit for getting Governor Youngkin elected in Virginia, because they were so unhappy with the Biden administration's policies on Ethiopia that they switched their votes from the Democrats to the Republicans. And they say that it was their margin of votes which took, you know, Youngkin over the top. So, you know, when you are organized, when you are unified, then your votes really, really matter. That's why it's so critically important to speak with one voice. And again, I'll tell you, I did not see Cameroonian groups when I was assistant secretary, because I had so many of them wanting to see me. And when I had to worry about what was going on in Ethiopia, I just did not have time to listen to one Cameroonian group after another.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Before we take the next hand, there's a very good question in the chat, which I would ask you from Eve Talon. And the question is, during your tenure, what were the hurdles that prevented the U.S. government from enforcing targeted sanctions against Biya's government's key officials? Don't you think sanctioning those officials opens a pathway to productive dialogue?
Yeah, I think sanctions can be very important, but sanctions are also a two-edged sword, because if you use them too often, then they lose their effectiveness. And there's still open debate on the overall effectiveness of even large-scale sanctions. I mean, you all know that we've had sanctions on Cuba now for going on like 60-some years, and they have achieved absolutely nothing. Getting sanctions through the U.S. government is an incredible bureaucratic process. And the U.S. government agencies who apply sanctions say, okay, this year, you know, ideally we can come up with X number of sanctions. So you in Africa, who are your top people? You can't automatically just have any unlimited number of, you know, you have the people from the DRC, you have people who are, you know, committing terrorist acts, on and on and on, and then you have the people that are blocking democracy in Zimbabwe. So it's like standing in a queue, and the places in the queue change all the time. It's almost like a queue in Lagos, Nigeria. If you've been to the airport there, you know how places change there all the time. Sanctions are not a straightforward deal. People think that, you know, all of a sudden you say, oh, you know, the embassy says this is a despicable person, they're committing human rights violations, so we want them sanctioned, and 2 weeks later, you know, they show up on a list. It is an extremely, extremely laborious and bureaucratic process. And it takes people who actually do the sanctions to be your champions. Because at the same time, someone is saying, oh, we need to, you know, we need to sanction these via advisors or the president himself. And then you have other people say, oh, no, you know, our relations, that would totally ruin our relations, and then Cameroon would no longer cooperate on the counterterrorism effort, or those kind of things. So there are always many voices and many points of view. That's why, again, I keep going back to this. It is critically important for the community to stay engaged, to weigh in, and to weigh in together in a unified position.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Let's
We
take
still
a
have
question.
Dr. Fontem. I think Dr. Fontem now can unmute, so we don't forget him. Yes, Doc.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Your Excellency, we have there is an issue that relates to the way the Cameroon government is using jihadist militias to fight the Southern Cameroon's liberation forces. And with the specter of the Boko Haram still unresolved, should the use of these Islamists not be a source of concern to the international community? And how can we leverage on that? Your thoughts?
Of course it should. Absolutely. Anytime you introduce extremism, religious extremism, that is a very, very important issue to the U.S. government. Also, you know, to everybody, basically. So that is the kind of thing where your interactions and exchanges with U.S. government activities is critically important. But it's also critically important on the Cameroon side to provide that kind of information and details to the U.S. Embassy, people at the U.S. Embassy, so that then the U.S. Embassy from Cameroon can also engage with that information and provide that information to Washington from that side. I mean, you know, the Cameroon community should have regular contacts with the State Department, you know, not just, you know, one group comes in and makes some points and another group comes in and makes some points, but you should have members of the community whose profession is public diplomacy, communications, to be in regular contact with the Cameroon desk officer at the State Department.
Thank you. Let's take the next hand, which is Victorine. Victorine, go ahead, unmute yourself and ask Your Excellency your question. Victorine, are you there? Okay, okay, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Your Excellency, for taking this time with us. I'm coming back as regarding to the Swiss, because we met in Canada, and I believe that was the meeting with them and other stakeholders. I can say almost all the stakeholders as concerning the struggle. And based on the fact what you presented to us concerning that, if we come together, we are expecting to hear from the government of Cameroon. Unfortunately, we met there, so I believe that meeting has been held, and because I have been waiting to hear what they will say, and again, based on that fact that that meeting has been held and the government of Cameroon still proceeds in its genocidal action in our country, what do we do next?
What I would do next is make sure, again, if the community is ready to fully engage with the Swiss, then get in touch with your Swiss contact and say, we are absolutely ready to go. Just name the date, the sooner the better. Because, you know, if you do that, I mean, ideally, if the Swiss process, again, this is my personal belief, so I can't speak the truth, I don't think is going to lead anywhere. But so the earlier that can be made clear, the better, because if the Swiss issue a report basically saying we're stopping the process because while the Cameroonian opposition is prepared to engage, the Cameroonian government is not, so that's the end of the process. At that point, you take away the fig leaf from the Cameroonian government. So to me, the important thing is to not just let it drag out, to just either leave it on the table as a viable mechanism that may lead to something, or take it off the table as quickly as possible, which would be in everybody's benefit. The only one who benefits from an eternal process right now is the Cameroonian government. I mean, I know it's very pleasant to go to Montreux and sip, you know, champagne at the hotel overlooking Lake Geneva, but that's not advancing the cause at all.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We have two more hands up. Jojo, your question. Let's just go to the question. Jojo, unmute yourself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you again, Mr. Ambassador, for coming. I have the impression that if a fact-finding mission is sent down to Cameroon, it will make a lot of difference to alleviate the suffering of our people. What do you think we can do to ensure that a fact-finding mission is sent down to Cameroon to find out, to investigate the atrocities being committed there?
Well, okay, on a fact-finding mission, the important thing is obviously who is going to undertake the fact-finding mission? Who do you get behind it? Is it the Commonwealth? I don't think that they would be willing to do it. Is it the Africa Union? No, they're not going to be willing to do it. So it would have to be two approaches. One, it would have to be a fact-finding mission that would also have the support of the Cameroon government. Or two, it would be a fact-finding mission by a very credible organization that would go in under the radar and produce a report. For example, in Ethiopia, they have the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, which is actually paid for by the government, but it's very, very independent of the government. I don't believe that there's any such organization in Cameroon. I don't know for sure, but I just don't believe. So it would have to be extremely, extremely carefully planned, because the obvious thing is you want the report to be received credibly by the entire international community. You don't want the kind of report that will then be, totally discredited and a waste of time. I go back to that very first multi-party election in Cameroon. I think I forgot if it was 1991 or 1992, where National Democratic Institute, NDI, came in and did the report on the election. And anyone reading the report, even today it's online, it makes it clear that the election outcome is highly suspect, highly suspect. And all the Western countries, at least, except for one country, which was the French, gave that report extreme credibility. So fact-finding missions can be extremely powerful, but it again comes down to how it's done, and equally importantly, who it's done by.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Before we go to Pa Granot, I mistakenly lowered the hand of John 32. He was after Jojo. So let me give him that opportunity. That was a mistake. John 32, I would give you, then after that we can go to Pa Granot. You can unmute yourself.
Maybe we should just go to Pa Granot, and when he unmutes, then
yeah, because guys, I have to stop here very shortly.
Right.
Okay, we'll go to Pa Granot, then we'll go to Bernard, then we'll end. Please, make it quick, please, Pa Granot.
Exactly.
Okay, if Pa Granot is not there, Bernard, can you unmute yourself?
I'm there. I'm there.
Okay, go ahead. Your question.
John 32 is also there. Yeah, I'm there. Now.
All right, Pa Granot, hold on. Let's go to John 32. John 32, go ahead.
Yeah, please. I was trying to thank the ambassador and quickly go to my question that how can we use the special protective status that the American administration has given to our refugees out here to advance our cause? Because by doing that, they are recognizing that we have a genocide going on in our territory. How can we use that as an advantage to advance our cause?
Okay, it's obviously you can make that one of your points, but remember, temporary protected status is exactly what it says, is temporary. And if you read the decree on it, it's all of Cameroon, not just the Anglophone area, because it also includes the people who are from the north, who would be victimized if they went back because of Boko Haram. But basically, temporary protected status says that the conditions in the country And at no point is there the word genocide. But the conditions in the country are such that someone who is here, even if their visa expires, then if they are forced to go back, then they would be in danger, you know, for a variety of reasons. So yes, it's absolutely a point to be used because it's a recognition on the part of the United States government that conditions in Cameroon are such that they would endanger a Cameroonian who would have to go back.
Okay, let's take John 32 quickly before Your Excellency leaves. John 32, go ahead.
John 32.
Yeah, I'm the
32.
one who don't ask the question. John 32. I don't ask my question. Go to the next.
Okay, so it's can I come on?
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Ambassador, I'm very, very happy I have this opportunity to ask you this question. I know, Mr. Ambassador, you are the big deal for Ambazonia. You are the big hit.
Ask you.
And we've met you again and again, and we've seen you come to us. Now, we Ambazonians, we have lost money on lawsuits, 2 different American firms. We have wasted time and money for processes that are not working, like the Swiss process. My question for you, Mr. Ambassador, I see you, you are the big hit. You are the man. You are our guy.
Question, please.
Right? Would you accept, can you accept, you know, if upon proper consultations with Ambazonians on the background, we do the right thing that it takes? Because I know that you know the offices, you know the players in America,
What's
you
your
know
question?
the calls, you have the telephone numbers, you have the contacts and everything. You are the hit. Would you accept if Ambazonians maybe do some proper consultations with you in the background to do some
Okay. Yeah.
So Mr. Bernard says he is from Ground Zero. So Ground Zero means he's from the Northwest and Southwest province. So Mr. Bernard, we welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Town Hall. Your Excellency, I greet you. I'm calling from Ground Zero, precisely in Nabakwa. I've listened to you talk. I have just one question for you, because you've said if we have to go into any meaningful negotiation, we must know what are the interests of each and every party to that negotiation. So I just want to ask, with your experience, are you willing to help whoever comes up from the Amazonian side to give them guidelines on what are particular interests of each and every party based on your experience?
Did anyone get the question?
Yes, I think the question John Bernard was asking is, based on your experience, are you willing to help? Are you prepared to help every person who can, any Ambazonian who comes to you, to help identify the interests of the different parties that might be relevant to the conversation, based on your what you had explained? Mr. Zelensky is doing, you know, identifying different people and tailoring the ask to their interests.
You know, coming out of the job I come out of, I have certain limitations of what I can and cannot do. This is the kind of thing I can do, you know, and I do this not just for Southern Cameroonians, but I do this for various other groups as well. But I cannot do detailed kind of work that you would, for example, engage a Washington representative to do for you on a full-time basis. But you know, as well as I do, that other groups do engage Washington representatives, and there's quite a few of those people around. So if the community decides to go in that direction, then, you know, absolutely the community, you know, should do that, because there are some really, really good people that have fantastic contacts with the U.S. government. But yeah, that's not something that I can do. What I do is I do because of my passion and because of how I feel for causes like this. And yours is one of the causes that I believe in very strongly.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I think we've taken you 2 minutes past the allocated time you granted us. We apologize for that, but we really, really thank you for your graciousness. I would put I see Dr. Kilo is in the house. If you don't mind, I will give her the honor, if she's anywhere she can turn on the camera to maybe say a word on behalf of Southern Cameroonians. to thank you. If I see where you are, I'll spotlight you if you're there.
I am here.
Okay, welcome. Okay, I'll add you to the spotlight. And
well, Ambassador, we've listened to you today, and I'm sure that this is a bigger crowd than has listened to you before, because the Southern Cameroon's International Town Hall is truly a much bigger marketplace where everybody comes together to share ideas and to listen and be educated. So we thank you so much for the education that you've given us today. And we hope that, as usual, when we talk to our guests, given the kind of quality of questions, which I'm very impressed with, we hope that you will come again and talk to us. So thank you very, very much on behalf of our community.
Thank you very much. And, may God bless you and God bless Cameroon.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. That was Ambassador Tibor Nagy there in that exclusive presentation with the Southern Cameroonians meeting over the weekend in their regular town hall meetings. Now, it is important that I state here clearly that we here at the interim government, and of course, this television channel do not endorse these town halls, because we realize most of the members of these town halls are federalists and one Cameroonians. We do not subscribe to their ideology, to their way forward, and so by bringing that presentation here on ABC, we are not endorsing the Southern Cameroon's town halls. We are not endorsing them, but we thought to bring to you the views of Ambassador Tibor Nagy, especially concerning the Swiss initiative and the idea of the interim government. And I want to believe that you all got some lessons from him, sharing his opinion as an expert on the international issues. Good evening once more and welcome to the Anchor Man. It's a privilege to be with you. For all of you tuning in by way of Facebook, please go ahead and hit your share button. Go ahead, hit your share button. Let me know what is happening in your neck of the wood, and I want to believe you all had a wonderful weekend out there. Please go ahead, hit that share button. I'm going to come back to the subject. Was it a bad idea? I am referring to the interim government. Was it a bad idea after watching and listening to Ambassador Tibor Nagy, a veteran diplomat, ladies and gentlemen? The idea of the interim government, was it a good idea or a bad idea? Of course, he has answered the question. He has answered the question, but I'm going to bring you my take on that to support his idea, the position you put out there. But please, before I do that, I saw the numbers just drop after that presentation was over. But please, I'd like you to go ahead. Many people do not know I am live, so go ahead, hit your share button, let them join the platform. I'm going to discuss a few number of things here. This is not going to be a long broadcast, but I won't forget to take your phone calls. I won't forget to open the phone line, take your phone calls. But I'm going to be talking about this idea of the interim government as put forth out there by Ambassador Tibor Nagy. We'll also talk about these frivolous lawsuits that Samuel Ekomesako is hiding behind organizational names are putting out there. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to address it. I will also address some information announcement that I am hearing out there about a draft being called for by a group that is usurping itself as an interim government. I'm going to address those. But let me start with this, ladies and gentlemen. OKU 40, the OKU 40, they are still missing. The OKU 40 is still missing, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this is what we have learned. This is what we have learned. We learned that a number of the OKU 40s were discovered in the keeping of French Cameroon authorities. But as of today, 16, the whereabouts of 16 of them is unknown. They essentially disappeared. And the Cameroon government authorities, they have said nothing about the disappearance of these 16 OKU bikers who were picked up about a month ago returning from a funeral of one of theirs. And 40 of them were picked up. We now are aware that the rest, some have been accounted for, but for 16 others who have not been accounted for. In other words, nobody has seen them. The families have not seen them. Nobody knows their whereabouts. Nobody knows their whereabouts. The images you find on your screen, those are some of the victims of the OKU 40, ladies and gentlemen. Again, a number of them have been discovered. I do not have the list of the names, but we are reliably told that 16 of them have not been found. Their whereabouts remain unknown. And so we will keep that story up. We will keep that story up, ladies and gentlemen, until all of the 40 are accounted for. We will keep it up until all the 40 of them are accounted for. We will never let it go. These are Ambazonian citizens. We will not just allow them disappear like that. So that is what is going on, ladies and gentlemen. That is what it's going on. Now, let me now take you to the most important story here of the day. The most important story of the day. The idea of the interim government. The idea of the interim government. The question has been asked again and again and again and again. Was the interim government the right thing to do? Was the interim government the right thing to do? That is the question that Tibor Nagy attempted an answer here a few minutes ago, as you all watch from your screens. Of course, the interim government was the right thing to do. Tibor has made it very, very clear. And he stated, now let's get back to it. Let's listen to what Tibor said. Listen to this.
Here's the problem. On the interim government, here's the problem. If there is one interim government that the great majority of the community recognizes, that is a point of strength. If there are several interim governments and they all present themselves as an interim government, then that is a huge point of weakness and confusion. And the international interlocutors will look at that as just waste of time, number one, and a reason not to get involved. On the interim government, here's the problem. If there is one interim government that the great majority of the community recognizes, that is a point of strength. If there are several interim governments and they all present themselves as an interim government, then that is a huge point of weakness and confusion. And the international interlocutors will look at that as just waste of time, number one, and a reason not to get involved. On the interim government, here's the problem. If there is one interim government that the great majority of the community recognizes, that is a point of strength.
That is a point of strength, he says, ladies and gentlemen. The interim government was a point of strength for as long as we had one united interim government. That is according to Tibor Nagy. And of course, that was the idea of the interim government from day number one. The idea of the interim government was to bring everybody, not individuals, but different groups in the struggle. The Cho Ayabas, the Ebenezer Akwangas, the SCNC, the APLMs, the SCOUN, you name the rest. We have over 15 or 20, close to 20 groups in this struggle today. From the beginning, that wasn't the idea. The idea was to bring every group into one big tent. One big tent. And that one big tent was called the interim government. Again, the interim government was to carry out the diplomatic front, the communications front, the defense front, you can name the rest, of this struggle. And I know that from the beginning, every effort was done to bring everybody on table. Was everything done right? Of course not. Not everything was done right, and I made it very clear then, not everything was done right. But it was a good idea, and it remains a good idea, fellow Ambazonians, the idea of the interim government. Now, this is very important. This subject is very important because recently we heard Honorable Weber came out lashing out at the idea of the interim government. And other opportunists who think that at this moment they can jump in and hijack it and take over and manage it have always gone out to trash the interim government as a bad idea. You have other groups who think that if other groups who think that their fight should be against the interim government, the idea of the interim government, and not against La République du Cameroon. And so they will not rest until they make sure the interim government crumbles and exists no more. That is for some groups out there. You also have others who are salivating, rejoicing, jumping and saying the interim government is crumbling. It is crumbling. It is crumbling. Few days to go, it will be over. You have groups out there and they are hoping there, strategically positioning themselves, hoping that it finally goes under, and then they now come in and take it all over. Ladies and gentlemen, let me speak to the idea of revolutionary councils and those who sit and criticize and talk and just say anything when they just do not know what it takes to do what the interim government has done for 5 years and counting. All of you, with no exception, will agree with me that for the 5 years and counting that we have been in this struggle, if we were not for the interim government, this thing would have been long over. It would have long ended, sold to La République du Cameroon by the many people who are now running their mouths out there. People who were calling Ambazonia from day number one with us, who are today singing a federal or one Cameroon. Those people would have sold us for it had it not been for the existence of the interim government. So, ladies and gentlemen, the interim government was the right thing to do, and we have heard from Tibor Nagy, made it very, very clear. It was a good idea, but for the factions, the divisions, which have now come in through selfishness. We started with Sisiko Ayoktabe, who is locked up in Kondenge, but thinks that he must still run the interim government from Kondenge, from behind bars. Ladies and gentlemen, who does that? Now, Samuel Ekome Sako is impeached the same way that Sisiko is impeached and removed. And Samuel Ekome Sako is out there trying to run a pseudo-interim government, thinking that, people will just give them a free pass. This is a problem in the idea of the interim government. The problem where people are taken out of leadership in the thing that in the Africa, just like in the African context, leadership context, strongman context in Africa, you send them out. They just want to remain still. Now, let me say this to every Ambazonian. I hope you can listen to the sound of my voice. To every Ambazonian, if we say we are building a democracy, a democratic country with democratic institutions as this interim government, and we haven't caught the animal is still in the bush, we haven't caught that animal, and some people are just positioning themselves, strategizing and saying, I must stay until I catch that animal. I must be the one who catches that animal. Is that the new country that we plan to build or we plan to take to Boya? It's a shame for educated, intelligent, smart people to sit in the diaspora and still behave like the tyrants we seek to overthrow back in Africa. That is a problem with the interim government. If Sisiko had gone and said, hey, you know what, brothers? We are now incapacitated. We cannot do anything. We no longer have our liberties. As you free men and women out there, please take over. But please consult us here with what you do. Just imagine we will not have a split in the interim government. If Sako had stood up and said, hey, you want me to run for elections? You gave me a 2-term election? All right, I am running for election. Runs for election. Win the elections. There will be no problem here, ladies and gentlemen. What the interim government is suffering the most is greed. 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 That is the problem. The problem is not in the name. The problem is in people, individuals who are so self-centered, they've forgotten about the thousands who are killed on the ground on a daily basis. All the things, you have learned how some people have said they are going to Boya. Len Irene was said he was going to Boya he will be the director of customs. The director of customs in Boya. That is a pre-position Sako has assigned for Iringwa, director of customs, when we get to Boya, ladies and gentlemen. Then, of course, he probably has sold other positions to his cabinet, so-called cabinet members. The reason why they are not ready, for the sake of 8 million Ambazonians, obey or respect the institutions of Ambazonia, talking about the Restoration Council, talking about the Ambazonian Treasury and every other arm of this institution, the counties, the LGAs, the countries, and the regions. That is the reason they are not laying down, respecting the institutions of Ambazonia. They are hanging on, even if it means destroying the struggle, even if it means quenching, ladies and gentlemen, the appetite of Ambazonians for their own free country. That is what is wrong with the interim government. When you have selfish individuals who think that it was a birthright, that Ambazonia is a kingdom to be ruled by a king who can only relinquish power when he dies. I am here referring to Ayok Tabe and Samuel Ekome Sako. This is the bad idea about the interim government. The interim government was a good idea. The interim government is the only institution, the only grouping here that has institutions with checks and balances. The shots are not called by one man. The shots are called by the majority of the executive, the stakeholders, not by one man. That is why the interim government is critical. There are checks and balances. In fact, just imagine if these institutions, these structures were not there, Samuel Ekome Sako will still be seated here telling you he is fighting for you. In fact, remember, Samuel Ekome Sako was the first man to say he is the last man standing. He is the last man standing. That was what he came out and told all of you when these issues started here, this problem started, and you couldn't take care of them. When we began to call him out of it, he said everybody is compromised. Chris Anu is compromised. Abongwa is compromised. Everybody is compromised. He is the last man standing. He wanted everybody to believe. Fellow Ambazonians, I am saying this to say this. Now, before I get here, let me say something about these revolutionary committees by Honorable Weber. The government idea remains the best thing that has happened to this struggle. The government idea remains the best thing that has happened to this struggle. You cannot come out and circumvent, rebuild the wheels. I am here referring to, again, the revolutionary committees. You do not come out and rebuild the wheels when the wheels already exist. They are spinning and they are actually walking. They are driving. The idea of revolutionary councils or committees, how is that different from the LGA by LGA? From the county by county? I have heard some people say, oh, maybe even county by county was a bad idea. I don't know how bad it is when counties and LGAs, they can all rally together, raise funds for their counties, for their LGAs, and use those funds to prosecute the war in their counties. How bad can that be? Of course, where it gets bad is only when fraud and corruption now comes in. I'm talking about the county Bitcoin executives who are now running with Sako. That's a bad idea. But the idea of county by county, LGA by LGA, was to galvanize. It was meant to galvanize everybody. And it did. It worked well. It is still working well. When somebody comes out and is talking about revolutionary committees without being able to distinguish it from the LGAs by LGA, the county by county, which is the best grassroots organization you can have. I don't know what they want. I don't know what they hope to achieve. You build revolutionary committees. You come, say, in Houston and you put up 10 revolutionary committees. 10 revolutionary committees. And those 10 revolutionary committees are not made up of 3 counties. They are not made up of 3 counties. Ladies and gentlemen, what do you do with it? What do you do with it? It doesn't make sense. I am saying this to say that this is the moment. This struggle suffers. This struggle needs to be saved. And the only way you save the struggle out there, ladies and gentlemen, is not to sit out there, grumble and criticize and make jabs at those who are actually doing the work. The way to sustain it, to keep the struggle, to keep it running, is to say, let us get back into the interim government. No matter what is wrong with it, all of us, we can come together, sit on the table and fix it. And if your group says, I don't want to be part of it, at least as we heard from Tibor Nagy, there are areas that we can work together on. There are areas we can work together on. And for this interim government, let me also say this. This interim government must do everything to make sure that every Ambazonian and every group, every leader is consulted and brought to the table for collaboration, to do things from the same line of thought. Do things from the same line of thought. It is very, very critical. I am here referring again to the burden that lies on the table of this interim government. The need to reach out to every other group. Now, I am not saying that every group is willing to come and cooperate with this interim government, and not every group is worth cooperating with. We all know that. But it is the duty of this interim government to reach out to every other group to make sure that they are staying away, not because the interim government doesn't want them. It should be they stayed away just because they don't either like the interim government or they don't like cooperation or unity. It is very, very critical. We are not going to pay lip service, ladies and gentlemen. The interim government should not pay lip service. The interim government must extend that olive branch to every leader out there. We must grow beyond this selfish, greedy mentality of trying to build fences around us to protect ourselves, just keep ourselves on the throne as if this is all about individuals. We must all fight against that. We can make the interim government stronger, more effective, and more money too. More money too. The only way we get more money to prosecute the struggle, bringing more people on the table. That is all that we need. Bringing more people into the tent. The big tent, that is the interim government. So to round this up, I thank God that Tibor Nagy is the one who made the statement that the interim government was a great idea, is still a great idea, ladies and gentlemen. The problem is when greedy people decide to, form factions here and there and still want to call it the interim government. Any group out there referring to itself as the interim government without a restoration council, listen, you are not the interim government. There is only one interim government, the interim government with the Restoration Council, with the Judiciary Council, ladies and gentlemen, with the Treasury, with the Defense, National Defense, everything you can think of. That is the legitimate interim government of Ambazonia. And I'm really hoping that this legitimate interim government of Ambazonia continues to open the tent for everybody to come in and contribute and contribute his or her own quota into this struggle. We are at that point. We are at that point. Having said that, I hope that you got the message there. Now I take you to something else that has to do with the lawsuit. The lawsuit, ladies and gentlemen, that you all hear about out there. You have all listened to audios out there coming from somewhere, Sako usurpers. They want you to believe that this interim government is down. They want you to believe that Chris Anu, Richard Tango, Blaise Che, Eddie Mola, and so on, Frida Asho, they want you to believe, oh, they are all done. They are all done. The American court is going to deal with them. The evidence is just overwhelming that Chris Anu and the rest, they are going to jail. Fellow Amazonians, listen to me very carefully. We will not litigate those cases, those frivolous suits on television. We will not litigate them on television, and I am not going even to talk about the validity of those cases. But let me say one more thing. And I said this in an audio the other day, and I saw them going gaga. He is admitting evidence. He is admitting evidence. Let me admit it again. Fellow Amazonians, as you are all aware, after impeaching and removing Samuel Ekome Sako, he hijacked your national treasury. Samuel Ekome Sako hijacked your national treasury after he was impeached and removed. In other words, you went with every single bank account that belongs to you. Every single bank account in which your CID payments, in which your draft money went into, was hijacked by Samuel Ekome Sako. Of course, he also hijacked the website of the interim government. Then, after a few weeks, this interim government, the legitimate interim government of Iya Marianta, fought really hard, and in few weeks recovered every one of those accounts. We recovered every one of those accounts, and as I speak to you, no account belonging to this interim government is under the column of Samuel Ekome Sako. Everything has been stripped from him. He is stripped of everything, including the website ambazoniagov.org and the CID website. They have been stripped of all these things. Now, having been stripped of all these things, Samuel Ekome Sako, now, don't forget this. His name is not anywhere as the plaintiff, and you could hear the charlatans, surrogates, rushing out to defend and say, it is not Samuel, it is not Dr. Sako who has sued Chris Anu and the other team. It is Ambazonia Foundation. It is Ambazonia Foundation trying to vindicate Sako from the lawsuit, ladies and gentlemen. But of course, from day number one, Sako will be in the dog. From day number one, Sako is going to stand in the dog. Ladies and gentlemen, if he claims to be the president of Ambazonia, won't he go to the court to defend Ambazonia Foundation? Hello. If Sako claims to be the president of Ambazonia, and an Ambazonia Foundation belongs to Ambazonians, and Sako say he is the president of Ambazonia, won't he go to the court to defend Ambazonia Foundation? But I'm not going to get into that. But listen, We recovered, we stripped him, and you can take this, put this in record, cut this video, take it to the court if you want to present as evidence. We are not for a moment denying the fact that we have all those bank accounts in our custody. They belong not to an individual, they belong to the people of Ambazonia. All of you paying drafts out there, all of you paying CIDs out there, those bank accounts and every property of Ambazonia belongs to you. The government, the interim government of Iya Marietta recovered all of those things, and they are now in our column, and they are out there crying as babies and trying to get you believe that finally the God Chris Anu, the God Richard Tango, the God Frida Ashu, the God Mola Edi, the God and so on and so. I think about 6 or 7 people there. It's a waste of your money. What they are trying to do is a waste of your money, because the money that will be raised in this interim government, which should have gone on ground zero to you on ground zero, will go to the lawyers. Money that they will raise, that should be money going to ground zero, ladies and gentlemen, is going to the courts and to the lawyers. Somewhere Ekome Sako is out. It's up to no good. It's up to no good. We should have taken him to court. We refused to do that because we knew we are sacrificing limited resources for the lawyers. We didn't want to do that. The court system in America is not cheap. So we did not do that because we had ground zero, the priority in our heads. But since Samuel Ekome Sako has done it, fellow Ambazonians, we have no choice. This interim government has no choice. And we're going to be coming to you to ask for your support for these frivolous lawsuits by Samuel Ekome Sako. But what is going to happen at the end? Again, I am not going to litigate that here. I'm not going to say it here. Take note that the entire weight of the people of Ambazonia will be upon Samuel Ekome Sako. Will be. Ignore the fact that they want you to believe, oh, Samuel Sako did not file a lawsuit. It is just some Ambazonia Foundation, Southern Cameroon Foundation. Forget about that. Forget about that. All this thing lingers around Samuel Ekome Sako, and if you think he is smart enough to avoid this by any means, is a waste. It will be an exercise in futility. That's what it's going to be. So, fellow Ambazonians, again, I will say to all of you, they want you to be worried out there. They want you to shiver out there. They want you to be concerned out there. Listen, again, listen to the sound of my voice. I can assure you, it's a frivolous lawsuit, and they will end up paying for it. They will end up paying for it. Everybody whom Sarko's put a name on Ambazonia Foundation and the Southern Cameroons Foundation, it is not going to look good. It is not going to look good for all of you. When this is said and done, it is not going to look good for all of you when it is said and done. We are excited about this lawsuit, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very excited. I just read it and I just laugh. If I read some of the charges, ladies and gentlemen, you will wonder whether intelligent people, how do you sue somebody for going around with a title of Secretary of Communication? Imagine that. You suing somebody for going around with a title of Secretary of Communication? So, anyways, he forgot that he was already impeached and removed. And he has absolutely no authority, no power over any department, any institution or structure in Ambazonia from the day he was pronounced impeached and removed. All right, I don't have to say much here, but I only wanted all of you to know that what Sako has done has only taken, this is the last step that will get him dive into irrelevance, if not end up in jail, if not ending up in jail, because we are going to poke every nook and corner of somewhere Ekomesako and all the Bitcoiners surrounding him. We hear of so much investment everywhere. We are getting deep into the bottom of it. And of course, when it is all said and done, they will pay the bills, including our legal bills. So Ambazonia, when you are supporting this case, funding this case, know that it's an investment that will be recovered. The investment will be recovered. Every dime we use for the lawyers, I can assure you, will be recovered. It will be recovered. In a few days to come, I will come to you with some of the team members, and we are going to do a special fundraiser for this court case, to send a strong message from Ambazonians to the Sako team that Ambazonians have spit him out of your mouth. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you'll get that. I get to the last item here, which has to do with where is that now? All right, I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen, a draft that I hear being announced out there. A draft that is being announced out there. I'm sure you have all seen the audios making the rounds out there about a draft being called for that should be beginning this weekend, supposedly, by the impeach and remove Samuel Ekome Sako. This is what I have to say to you, ladies and gentlemen, and I believe that is the stand of this interim government. Samuel Ekome Sako does not run an Ambazonian interim government. He does not even run a group. This is a man you all know would not, manage your funds. This is a man you all know manage your funds for 4 years. For 4 years. And finally, when the Restoration Council called for an audit, he refused to show up in an audit. But he is coming to you, wanting you to come and give him more, just more of your money. Now, you want to give money to Samuel Ekome Sako as what? As who? You are giving him money. Who is he? Has he been audited for the past 4 years? Has he been audited? Has he come under any audit of draft 1 and draft 2, 2020 and 2021? Have those drafts been audited? Many of you in your counties have no idea what draft money did or accomplished. We have fighters on ground zero, like the no PTs, wanting everybody to hear them. They say they have never received a dime in a draft money. And somewhere, Ekome Sako is out there announcing a draft starting at the weekend. I would like every activist out there, you all Ambazonians, this duty. Every activist out there, again, you owe Ambazonians this duty, the duty of going out this week and the weeks ahead and telling them they are putting, if they conduct anything like a draft, they are putting their money into the pockets of con men and con women. Ladies and gentlemen, you go out to put out a dime in so-called draft, you are putting your money into the pockets of con men. That money will end up in their private investments. And before you know, Ground Zero will be saying, we never saw the money. Think about Lava Storm 1, 2, 3, and 4. They didn't buy one stick. Nothing. They conducted draft number 1, draft number 2. And they could not stop AFCON. They could not stop Chan. They could not stop 11 February. Somewhere, Ikome Sako, who claims to be your leader, has no backyard of his own. He cannot claim that Chico is his local government because nothing happens there. Nothing is happening in Victoria. Very little is happening in Boya, ladies and gentlemen. I am appealing to every Ambazonian out there. Please, please call your friends, call your relations. Tell them we will not continue to legitimate usurpers in this struggle. You just listen to Tibor Nagy. Said the government was a great idea, but for the split and the factions to which Samuel Sako should be held responsible. You give him a dime, you are feeding you are paying his rent, you are putting food on his table, and you are investing for him. That's all that I can say. So please, I need every activist out there put out messages educating people. There is nothing like a draft out there. This government hasn't called for any draft, and we're not calling for any draft. There is nothing in the vocabulary of this government as draft. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I will open the phone lines. I didn't have much to bring to you. It's been a very hectic week. Spent a lot of time on the road. Not very much prepared for a long broadcast. But I will open the phone lines, especially for those of you who are tuning in from Ground Zero and across the globe to call in. And before I do that, I just want to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that ABS, if you are in the diaspora, ABS can now be found in your home. ABS can now be found in your home, precisely on the Roku. If you go in, if you have smart television set and you have Roku, all you need to do is go in, look for the search button, click on it, type ABS Africa, and you will find ABS showing up in your Roku. And that means whatever is being watched on Ground Zero, you will be watching it anywhere in the world for as long as you have Roku. If you don't have Roku, go to Walmart. Go to Walmart, buy Roku. It's between $20 $24. But most TVs nowadays, they have Roku in them. All you need to do is install it, go and hit the search button in Roku, enter ABS Africa TV and search, and you will find it. You don't need to pay for anything to watch it. It is running 24/7 as I speak. All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, I open the phone lines. I will open the phone lines and take your calls and hear what is in your mind. Let me see the first caller from Ground Zero here. Hello. 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 Hello, sir.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, sir. Where are you calling from?
Yes, from Meme County. County.
From Meme County, okay. What is in your mind, sir?
Okay, I want to say welcome after a long absence, because when we were looking on social media, everywhere, those surrogates of Sako were saying how you are passing through hell because you are going to be jailed and all whatnot. But coming again and making us to feel that you are still strong and alive, I think it has really brought our feedback again, and we are saying that you go ahead and fight for us Amazonians. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Don't mind them; they are crybabies. It's just propaganda. It's empty propaganda. It's empty propaganda. You know, there are times that family issues come up. We have to take care of them. There are times that you may have to be on the road, and there's nothing you can do. So, and by the way, ABS has been on ground live 24/7. So you guys should never be worried about that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for the call. All right. Again, the phone line is there, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead and make your call. Go ahead, make your call. Let's see. Okay, let me read this. If Sako finds out things won't work out in his favor, he will disappear. If he has the possibility to, he cannot disappear, my friend. You cannot disappear. This is America. The law works. He will disappear to nowhere except he's disappearing to jail. I mean, look at me, eyeball to eyeball. I am not just trying to get you happy and excited out there. I mean what I am saying. They have absolutely no case. It's a frivolous case. I will say this again and again and again and again, and I will repeat that. We have our institution, Ambazonia Foundation, Southern Cameroon Foundation. We have them with us. The only one I regret we don't have is ABC. But listen, we will get it back. If I wanted to behave, to disrespect our institutions as Sako is trying to do, I could have kept ABC to myself. I refused to do that. I handed it over to them because, ladies and gentlemen, when we set up institutions, we should respect them and obey them. All right, let me get to the next caller here. Okay, this is Ground Zero. Hello. 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 Okay, when you call, you have to be there to pick it, sir. Let me get to the Honorable Anne in there. Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, Secretary Chris, good evening.
Good evening, ma'am. Good to hear your voice.
Yes. I'm just calling because I've been watching since the beginning of this broadcast, and I am shocked that there are things Ambazonians don't even know. The person who filed the lawsuit is Dr. Mungwa. He said that in an audio, and surprisingly, this man was not even in the cabinet when the Restoration Council vetted the cabinet. He is not even that's a member of that cabinet. That's a legal.
But he was hold on there. He was a member of Ambazonia Foundation, isn't it?
No, I don't. That I don't know for sure.
I know that he was a member of the audit committee. I'm not so sure. I think Richard Tangu may know better, but it doesn't really matter whether he was in or not. What matters are the facts they had. They have nothing. I mean, you people. I wish we could circulate that nonsense for you guys to read and look at the emptiness of those suits. Empty. All right, go on, man.
Did you listen to his voice recording?
I did.
He started by saying that it is not the not Sako who is suing Ambazonian Foundation.
Correct. But they're just trying to shield Sako from it.
It's Ambazonian Foundation, and it's a standalone NGO or organization. And then before he ended, he now linked it to Sako.
Correct.
And I was asking, how dull is this doctor of a man?
No, the problem with these doctors is that we don't know where they got the titles from, because the way they act does not reflect the titles they run around with.
I hope it's not from Tarampong University. You know, Sako has shown them how to get it from Tarampong University in South Africa.
I hope not. I hope not. But listen again to all Ambazonians out there. Nobody should be worried at all. Nobody should be worried at all. Those things will be dismissed, summarily dismissed. Okay?
Ambazonians need to know one thing, only one thing. There is a question. Question number one. Who made Sako president after impeaching Sisiko? That is the Restoration Council.
Honorable Anne, don't even go there. As I said, we will not litigate it on television. Let's just we know what we know, right?
Right?
Yes, we know what we know. Let's wait. We get them in court. And Ambazonians, they say Sako is not there. Let me assure you, Sako will be witness number one.
Yeah, he cannot escape it this time around. Thank you.
Thank you for the call. Okay, let me see, who is this? Mola Samba. Hello. Hello.
Hello, Secretary Chris.
Hello, sir. Good to hear your voice. Calling from my backyard here in Houston. Am I correct?
Yes.
All right.
You are simply the best.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question regarding advertising on ABS. I want to advertise my book on ABS. So how do I go about it?
Absolutely, we can do that. Maybe I should give you a call after the show. How about that?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. I will give you a call after the show. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Okay. And ladies and gentlemen, the good thing about advertising on ABS is that everybody in the diaspora with Roku TV, which everybody has, can now see what your services are, what your product is, whatever business you want to advertise. Maybe it is your graduation, maybe it is your birthday, whatever your annual convention, the diaspora can watch it. Let me get to this caller here. Hello. 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 Well, again, when you call, you have to stay by place. Let's get to the next caller here. Hello.
Hello. Yes.
Where are you calling from, sir? Turn down the volume of your TV and focus on the phone.
I'm calling from Ground 1.
Ground 1. All right. What is your contribution, sir?
My contribution is that Mr. Sako is a thief and an arrogant man. He calls himself a pastor. He calls himself a pastor on which he is a thief.
Please turn down the volume of your television before you speak.
It's been turned off.
All right, go on.
He's an arrogant man. I think if his family is here in Cameroon, we can proceed on him. I will look for his family because he duped us.
All right. Thank you. Did you say he duped you?
Yes, he duped us.
What did he do?
He duped us in Cameroon.
What did he do?
He said that we should send her a contribution of fighting fire. In the last 2 years, we sent it, but he cannot do anything.
All right.
Now, I'm not getting the information that he gave to us. He's a thief. I will look for him. I was a fighter, but I gave up because of what he did to us.
From which county? You're a fighter from which county?
Batibo.
Okay.
So I'm just waiting. But this, I'm asking please, Mr. Crisano. I don't like if this fight get to an end without a good solution. Please, many people will die.
No, we know that.
So I want that.
We know that.
I want that you people should be strong. I want that you people should hold it strong. We are fighting. We are still. I'm not give up just because Mr. Sako did to us. I'm still strong. I will do it all my favor to fight.
All right.
You people should hold it strong.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the call. God bless.
Yes.
Okay, the lines are open. They have decided not to do the draft live because they are scared people won't respond. They will just read fake figures they didn't collect. Okay, this guy is correct. This guy is correct. Let me get to my buddy here, Sebastian. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Secretary Chris.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Oh yeah. Again, I want to thank you for the great show, and I want Ambazonians to follow what Tibor Nagy said, and let's work with him. About the court case, let me paraphrase from you, Secretary Chris. Ambazonians, this is Sebastian Barrico speaking. There is nothing. Hold your breath. I think Sako has pressed the wrong button this time around. I don't think there is going to be anything. I don't think Secretary Chris will come here in the media to tell you what is going on in the background, but truly there is nothing. Ambazonians, again, we at the interim government, we are assuring you that this is the last straw that will break his back. As Ambazonians, be rest assured that we are going to do it, and we will do it once and for all. Secretary Chris, we have to, we literally don't have to go and do a lot of fundraisers. There are Ambazonians, anonymous donors that the Sako know that have opted to bring in lawyers. I don't want to say a lot about this. I just want to make you know how much Ambazonians want to fight and take this case to the right place where it belongs. Again, I encourage all Ambazonians to come to ABS and do their publicity. It is working. I tried it with ABS and it's working. If you have a business, you want to advertise, just call Secretary Chris and send your business, talk to him. He's going to advertise and it's going to work. Again, Secretary Chris, thanks, and let us not let the cat out of the bag as far as the case, the court case is concerned. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you for the call. Absolutely, I know there are hungry Ambazonians out there who are ready. They are ready to put everything on the table to make sure that Sako pays for this. Okay, please go ahead and call. Keep calling. If you call and your call can't go through, please keep on calling. Keep on calling, ladies and gentlemen. Let me get to the next caller here. I think he's having a network issue. Keep on calling. If your calls do not go through, just keep on calling. You will eventually get through. All right. Okay, somebody is sending me an image of ABS from Ground Zero. Thank you, sir. All right, let's get to the calls. Hello. Hello. Again, when you call, you have to pick the phone when it is picked here. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Cristiano. I still come again. Just because did Mr. Sako know how many people that died in Batibo? If he's trying this way to behave that way, He knows how many people that dies in Batibo. If I may remember plenty of people that die in Batibo, I swear to God, I lost my family. I lost plenty of my family. If he knows that he was supposed to play in that game, I swear to God, I will deal with him. Even in heaven and earth, I will. Even it is. They said that there is not a court of a dumped man, but I will play the role of it. Because Mr. Sako lied to us and triggered us. He don't know the type of plenty of people. He is there in Europe. He don't know the type of people, plenty of people that dies in my family. If I remember it, I swear to God.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. We can feel your pain. All of us are feeling pain for the setback that he has caused us. But listen, they say an opportunity comes but once, and we have that opportunity to get at him. Thank you. Okay. Let me see. Godi Sako says, I found ABS on Roku, but it's not showing live shows. I saw only about 3 past videos there. Is that the state of things as of now? Yes, sir, you are correct. But I can assure you, before the end of the day, today, you will see it there. You start receiving it there. Godi, let me know where you are watching on Roku, please. Or am I missing anything? Yeah, please let me know where you are watching on Roku. Okay. Hello. Hello. Bad connection. All right. This one, right? Good evening, Secretary Chris. Please, something needs to be done about Moja. Something needs to be done about Moja. You're right. All right. All right. We hear you. Okay. The defense people, they hear you. Thank you. That is writing from ground zero. Okay. Please keep on calling. If your calls do not come through, keep on calling. Keep on calling. This is from somebody on ground zero. Proud of you, bro Chris. Bro Chris, may God continue to grace you with the stamina and wisdom in this struggle. All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. The phone lines are free now. Go ahead and call. The phone lines are open. Okay. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, again, that is the news. There is nothing like a draft. The interim government, this interim government is not conducting any draft. When you hear any announcement about a draft, it is carnage, it is fraud. And please do not put your dime into the pockets of people who will take your money and run away from accountability. We should never forget that Secretary Chris was running away from an audit. And that is why he didn't show up on ABC. And Secretary Chris went for an audit. And when the moment came, the Restoration Council said, somewhere, Ekomesako, you need to go for an audit. Somewhere, Ekomesako said you fired the Restoration Council. And then created a nonsense thing called House of Jewel. Nobody hears about it. Ladies and gentlemen, please, please, please. Our brothers and our sisters are dying on ground zero. They need money to prosecute this war. We need to put weapons into their hands. We need to put ammunition into their hands. And please don't give Sako your money to go there, use it to hire lawyers to frustrate this revolution, this struggle. Every Ambazonian activist out there, and you don't have to be an activist to put out an audio educating other Ambazonians. Don't give a dime. Do not give a dime to Samuel Okome Sako. They are using it to pay for lawyers to destroy the struggle. That should not be heard of. That should not be seen anywhere. Please go out, put out a message, use your social media platform, educate people. The interim government has not called for any draft. This interim government, where Iya Marianta is at the head, has not called for any draft. People should be educated because they will hear the audios out there and think that it is this interim government that is doing so, because they know Sako has no interim government. So please, it is incumbent upon each and every one of you out there on the social media, put out messages and counter every piece of message that you find out there. We must make sure a dime does not get into their hands. They collected enough for 4 years. They collected enough for 4 years. We saw absolutely nothing done with it. They collected for FACO, ladies and gentlemen. We saw nothing happening in FACO until last week, when for the first time FACO respected Ghost Town in lockdown. And you can imagine they were in the rush to take credit for it. And they were there 4 years, collected all the money. Nothing happened. So please, that education is very, very critical at this moment. Go out and make those messages. Okay. Please, the phone lines are now open. Go ahead and call. Somebody writes, he says, Sako used the wife to be collecting money from the National Treasury. In fact, we learned that Sako's wife they were using the National Treasury bank card, the National Treasury debit card to make purchases, to the extent of taking it to the mechanic to repair their cars. That is not a person you want to put your money into his hands. Sako used the wife to be collecting money from the National Treasury because he is receiving universal credit in America. We all expose him in court. Okay, that is coming from Honorable. He did not want to use his name anywhere because the U.S. government can trace him. Of course, no doubt about that. But he will be traced. He will be traced. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think without any other call, I should end here. I need to take some rest. Now, okay. All right, I will end it there without any other call, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank you. I didn't intend to make this any long. It's been a very long weekend out here, and I just didn't want to come out today, but thank you for tuning in. Again, you can now watch ABS 24/7 on Roku. You can now watch ABS 24/7 on Roku. And as I forget, please, those of you who made pledges to ABS in our last fund drive, please, this is the last moment for you to fulfill them. This is the last moment for you to fulfill them. You have the payment information out there. Please redeem those pledges. The month is over, and we have to take care of those bills. And I appreciate you a lot for doing so. All right. Thank you for tuning in. I look forward to being back here on Wednesday. I will be back. Thank you once more for tuning into the show. God bless and good night.
as you displayed. Macheso continue once the country is moved onto the pitch. Macheso ndeza kulerutiriza vema kanzi achipinda munhandare.
Chati number 1. Yatarikai. Chati number 2.
Anyori, me no fool. Anyori, me no fool. Sweet home, sweet melody, sweet home, sweet home, sweet melody, sweet home, sweet home, sweet melody, sweet home, sweet home, sweet melody, sweet home. Anytime I remember you, my heart they just they burn. Because say I know you miss me, but I just they run. I dey pray me love return, I dey pray me peace return, I dey pray me all the good days when we used to meet return. Yeah, more I dey miss you. Hanamone tamaniye tiyenga ye chazape, hanamo tamaniye tiyenga ye waridadi, hanamo tamaniye tiyenga ye yesabi. One chance is two chance, that's all we do. Sweet home, sweet melody, sweet home, sweet home, sweet melody, sweet home, sweet home, sweet melody, sweet home, sweet home, sweet melody, sweet home.
Mama, when the unity anina, Tianga hinye noa. Mama, when the unity anina, Tianga hinye jela kukambo. Mama, when the unity anina, Tianga hinye piewa. Amana ni wundinge, wajia shenori, anubidi shepopo, apu kaboe. Jewumane dimo, jewumane domo. Chris Will, in your boy. Ayi magwina, titi ya kukale. Waya manamana, titi ya kukale. Akuna mie, kikwale.
Anyori, me no fool. Anyori, me no fool. Sweet home, sweet melody, sweet home, sweet home, sweet melody, sweet home, sweet home, sweet melody, sweet home, sweet home, sweet melody, sweet home.
Amize nangtaro, nangongtaro, mamane. Nambe nyamatinjanga, ase kurupu. Amize smooth, we used to go up a festival. Oh yeah, I don't miss this moment, I do wish them feel it. Pray for peace to return in the land of Mogamu and the world at large. Because there is no place in the world I'll ever go that will take the place of home. Yeah, we did pray for peace to return.
The miss who die, the Mogamu. Oh, the miss who die, the Mogamu. Anyori, me no fool. Anyori, me no fool. Sweet home, sweet melody, sweet home, sweet home, sweet melody, sweet home, sweet home, sweet melody, sweet home, sweet home, sweet
mara ebube awa emoma wa ya ralitona emoma wa tongi te kora wu omo wele omo wa okele ko emoma wa tongi te kora wu omo wele omo wa okele ko emoma wa o atongi te kora wu omo wele omo wa okele ko emoma wa ratonga kome angani koyi meke modana mano lili lunge awe andi okeleko matongo mare okeleko omona okeleko natenonji awanga okeleko o America okeleko o UK okeleko nateno Texas okeleko uy iwe lindongoa orale mitawa o kwanye koma monye mama kobe marokoto umye rekeno ejoke onore bufinge ka ejoke meya eke mapachi ke sunge ejoke jumoko koni singe ejoke President Billy Sala of Florida o yokanye uwa no metunga emoma wa tongi te kora wu omo wele ya omo wa okeleko emoma wa tongi te kora wu omo wele ya omo wa okeleko emoma wa o atongi te kora wu omo wele ya omo wa okeleko emoma wa ratonga kome angani toyi meke modana mano lili lunge awe andi okeleko matongo mare okeleko omona okeleko natenonji awanga okeleko o America okeleko o UK okeleko nateno Texas okeleko ingondo na embere oyo eme ya monye oyo ndi bakekide ewe nilitunga okeleko ingondo na embere oyo irango ninyango ebudo na janinginya okeleko kokeleko ya wenge kokeleko bamenda olimbe Tengene, oh Nigeria, oh Algeria, oh Ethiopia, na no Saudi Arabia. Okeleko